Hello. First off, I just want to thank everyone for being here today and for listening to our presentations. My name is Nick.
I'm Sarah Joan.
Christine.
And we are part of the Greening of New York City Transportation Capstone this semester. And we spent the past 4 months working with a nonprofit group called Uprose. Uprose was founded in 1966 as a result of the need to address some of the environmental, social, and transportation issues in Sunset Park and that area. They continue to represent the needs of the largely poor immigrant and elderly community that resides there. Uprose came to us seeking our assistance in developing a community-based approach to solving some of the issues that currently plague 4th Avenue in their neighborhood. So just to kind of orient ourselves of where exactly we were working, here's a map of New York City, and then I'm just going to zoom in on 4th Avenue and Sunset Park. So here is Brooklyn, and then here is 4th Avenue. We're right along there. Throughout this presentation, we will outline for you what some of these problems are, how they're affecting the neighborhood, what methods we develop to gain community input, as well as what our own redesign looks like and what this experience can mean for others. Today, Sunset Park's largely immigrant communities are composed of Latin, Asian, and Arabic populations, most of which either fall into the category of under 18 or over 65 years of age, which is certainly an aspect of the population that requires attention when thinking about which issues are most important and which require the most attention. So here are some census data that looks at the same maps as we zoom in and see what kind of demographics are present in Sunset Park. So here's Brooklyn again, and then here's the area we were working on with 4th Avenue right in the middle there. Okay, so it's our belief that with proper resources, funding, and political priorities, that 4th Avenue can become an aesthetically pleasing, pedestrian-friendly, environmentally friendly street that also provides open space. Currently, 4th Avenue is unsafe for pedestrians because the traffic lights encourage drivers to speed and because the time allotted for pedestrians to cross is too short. There is also a fatality related to vehicles and pedestrians on the street at least once every year. 4th Avenue is also a major source of automobile pollution. There are some trees along the avenue, but not enough to make it aesthetically pleasing or attractive or to mitigate some of the effects of air pollution. The consequences of these problems include decreased mobility for the elderly and for children, adverse health effects, community division, and unsafe conditions. Uprose also stated that there is a high percentage of probability that within the next 10 years, a storm surge will occur in their area, and they would like to improve the avenue's ability to capture stormwater and prevent climate change.
So on Friday, April 8th, we visited 4th Avenue and we met with Uprose, and we have a video to present that basically summarizes our focus group and community meeting. Is there sound on here?
It's muted.
Oops. Where is it muted?
Here. Okay. Just click that.
Oh.
This is power you're plugged in. Looks like it is. No, that's your power.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. We can just play it.
I'll help everybody.
Celebrate you, baby. I have to praise you like I
Notice how fast that light changes. Unbelievable. So let's see here. So, as you can see from the video, we first began with a PowerPoint presentation which we discussed the health issues and gave an in-depth overview of the air pollutants that the Sunset Park community is exposed to. And this includes sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides, ozone, and particulate matter. And then we discussed the adverse health effects that may come from long and short-term exposure to these air pollutants, and that includes asthma, cancer, lupus, and diabetes. And discussing these health problems really solidifies why redesigning 4th Avenue is an important thing to do. An environmental redesign of 4th Avenue will address these air pollution problems and help combat these health effects. And then we explain the multiple improvements that a redesign would implement, including safety, access and mobility, livability, sustainability, and visual appeal. And in order to really convince our audience that change can happen, we gave examples of other streets that underwent extensive sustainable redesign in New York City. And we selected avenues that had similar problems originally to 4th Avenue, such as high congestion, high automobile speeds, pedestrian safety, lack of vegetation, and lack of open space. And then we assessed how these streets combat these issues through a redesign. At the end of the presentation, we requested that the group members fill out a survey in which we asked 8 questions that, in which the topics included if and how often they drive on 4th Avenue, how often they walk on 4th Avenue, whether or not the traffic disturbs them during their sleep, and how they would like to see 4th Avenue improved. So from this, over the course of the semester, and the combination of our reaction to 4th Avenue and from the discussion that we had with the focus group, multiple areas were considered. First, the first factor that we considered was, who is our audience? And when we asked the question to our focus group members, how do you use 4th Avenue? Crystal immediately said, I like to drive, and I like to drive fast. And we definitely appreciate her humor and her honesty. But it also, and then when we further discussed with the focus group members, we got this sense that, people in the community are kind of set in their ways. And if they use automobiles as their main form of transportation, they're not going to want that road to change. So this kind of presented this issue of, if construction were to happen on 4th Avenue, then is that going to be an issue when promoting the redesign? Are people going to be opposed to it? Second, we had to consider to what extent are people aware. And from discussing with the members, we found out that a lot of people may not be aware of the pollutants and the risks that they're being exposed to and the risks that this poses to their health. And therefore, we realized that education really is an extremely important aspect to promoting change, because in order to achieve successful change, community activism must be strong in numbers and participation and passion. And to increase the numbers of people involved in the community project, it's first and foremost most important to educate people. And then the third factor we considered was, what is a priority? And all of the group members agreed that pedestrian safety should be prioritized first and foremost. And this is because Sunset Park has one of the biggest walk-to-work communities in New York City. And since this project is a community project, it's really most important to stick with the concerns of the community and the needs and the wants of the residents there. So in considering all these aspects, we came up with a very strategic plan for 4th Avenue redesign. But first, we thoroughly assessed the reconstruction of Vanderbilt Avenue, which is located in Brooklyn, which we'll go over now, just because this is a very similar street to 4th Avenue, and many of the Sunset Park community members are familiar with this avenue.
Okay, so we looked at some of the redesigns applied to Vanderbilt Avenue to kind of get an understanding of what some of the similarities between the streets are and what are some of the best practices that have been used in other circumstances. So here they wanted to transform the street to become more pedestrian friendly, to create a more welcoming atmosphere, to reduce traffic speeds, and just enhance the streetscape. And then some of the things that they implemented along the street were an actual physical median, which wasn't present before. They also reduced the number of moving or driving lanes, and they also reduced the width of these lanes. And then they found that these measures, not only, they reduced the average speed of drivers, but without increasing the time that it took to get the time that people's trips were, or like commute times. And they also reduced the number of auto-related deaths. So now we're going to take a look at what our redesign looks like.
Okay, so I'll use this screenshot of 4th Avenue to point out some of the street's dangerous faults and some of the design challenges that we faced. So as you'll see, the median is very small. We estimated or measured it about 5 feet wide, which makes the distance to cross the street very long for pedestrians, especially since the majority of pedestrians in this neighborhood are either over 65 years of age or under 18. And right under that pedestrian runs the R train, hence the ventilation grates. And that's one of the reasons that most of our changes are not particularly invasive. So you'll see that there are 3 driving lanes on each side, and they're very large, estimated at about 12 feet each. They are highway width lanes, even though it's on a neighborhood avenue. And this, along with the timing of the traffic lights, which you can't really see in this picture, encourages speeding at about 5 miles per hour above the New York City speed limit. And that greatly increases the chance of death upon impact. The parking lanes are also unnecessarily large. As you can see over here, there's actually about 2.5 lanes for driving, which can create unnecessary confusion as well as encourage speeding and unsafe driving habits. Something that we mentioned before that you can't really see here is that the crossing time is too short for the elderly population and for the children to make it across, especially since the cars are already speeding. So this is a section view of the original lane, and this is a section view of our proposed changes. So this is what we've done to encourage safer driving and to make the street more pedestrian friendly and more conducive to outdoor activity. First, we widened the median and added grassy areas on either side of the subway grates. We will put benches there as well as trees, and at the suggestion of one of our focus group members, we would put chess tables there so that people are actually encouraged to use the space as open space and as public space. So that change necessarily reduces the width of the driving lanes, which will encourage slower driving, but as Nick mentioned earlier, with Vanderbilt Avenue, it is unlikely to actually increase the commute time. We also took some space from the lanes to add a protected recreation lane, which is right here. And that would be used for running and possibly for rollerbladers, and that's meant to encourage physical activity as well as active transportation, because the idea of a bike lane we found out was really unpopular with residents in Sunset Park. We've broken up the sidewalk into 2 parts, one of which would act as just a normal sidewalk, but the other side would have a grassy area, again with benches and trees, so that people can use it as a public space, a place to eat, rest, or hang out. And aside from pedestrian safety, having public space and community space was the most important issue for Uprose, and so that's what we tried to accomplish with that. Okay, so we had SketchUps, really detailed SketchUps of our redesign, but Mac to PC did not work in our favor. So some of the benefits of these changes is the smaller lanes will decrease traffic speed, which makes it safer for the pedestrians to cross the street. The green space, as our research shows, can contribute to better self-reported health, particularly lower anxiety and stress rates. It can also help mitigate some of the air pollution and contribute to a better stormwater management system. And open space and public spaces encourage people to be outside, which our research also shows encourages physical activity and improves personal and public health. So all of these improvements ideally would add up to create a world-class street. And in general, for any sort of troubleshooting or problems that you come up with, especially when you're working with an area that has a very specific demographic, is to understand the problem, but more importantly, consider your audience. And that way you can educate the community in a way that is most appropriate for them. And then you can propose solutions that will be most viable for that community. And that's the end.